Mishnah on Daf Lamed Zayin Amud Aleph. We continue here the Aveda of the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur. So in the previous Mishnah we spoke about the par that the Kohen Gadol came to, which was between the Ulam and the Mizbeach, and he had to lean his hands on it, and then he did the Shechita over there, and the spraying of the blood inside. Now we come to the two Seirim. There were the two goats, one that's going to be La Hashem, and one that's going to go to the Azazel, to the mountain, to throw it down. So the Kohen Gadol then backs up. He goes further back to the Mizrach of the Azara, closer to the entrance of the Azara. L'tzafin ha-Mizbeach, and he has to be at the tzafin of the Mizbeach. The Gemara will explain why specifically at the tzafin of the Mizbeach. B'chlal, we know that the Aveda with Kachei Kachim has to be all done at the tzafin, which is where the Shechita is done, and then from there you go and take it into to do the Zrike. But over here the Chiddush is that even the Geiralis that's going to be done over here, the lottery that was done to figure out which one goes La Hashem and which one goes La Azazel, is also done on the tzafin of the Azara, but the Mishnah specifically says that it should be at the tzafin of the Mizbeach. When the Kohen goes there, Hasgan Miminoi, the Zgan Kohen Gadol, was walking with him on the right side, the Roish Beisav Mismailai, and the Roish, the head of the Beisav that was serving that week, that was the family that was serving the Beis HaMikdash then, Mismailai walks with him on the left side. And Visham, when he comes there to the Mizrach and the Tzafin of the Azara, Shnei Seirim, there were two goats, the Kalpi Haisasham, and there was a box, a wooden box, which is called a Kalpi, that's where they placed the lottery inside of it. Ba Shnei Geiralais, and there were two Geiralais, which is essentially the two names, the two pieces that the word Shalesh Geroya was actually made from some kind of a wood. I think it's called boxwood. And on these two, they were written La Shem and La Azazel to make the Geirel of which one of these Seirim goes to a carbon and which one goes to the Azazel. Now the Gemara says, Va'asam, the Mishnah says, Va'asam ben Gamle shel Zohov. Ben Gamle, in his times, he was appointed as a Kohen Gadol. We learned about Ben Gamla before. Actually, according to one opinion, he was appointed by his wife paying for him to become a Kohen Gadol. So we're on Daf Lamed Zayin. He made the kalfi and then the goyralis that were placed inside. They were golden. They were golden plates that had Hashem's name on it, or La Hashem one, and the other one La Azazel. Now the Mishnah brought up this thing that Ben Gamla made, so it brings up other things that he did, and also actually other Kainim Gedalim did, and that they were praised for what they did in the Beis HaMikdash. So Ben Gamla was praised for this. And a similar, Ben Cotton, which was also a Kohen Gadol, also Yud Beis Dad Lekir. He made 12 faucets for the Kir to be able to wash all the Kainim at the same time in the morning, as the Gemara will say, the 12 Kainim that were used to do the Aveda of the carbon Tamid. In the beginning there were only 2 spouts for the Kir, and he made 12 of them. And another thing, for muchni lekir. He also made a muchni for the kir. What's this muchni? It's a wheel that how do they translate it there? Okay, it's a wheel that they basically lowered it down under the Azara, where there was the stream of water that was the source of the water for the kir, and they lowered it down every night there, because the water that remains inside the kir overnight above the ground would become puzzle. Anything that remains outside from Kachim overnight becomes puzzle and it can't be used. So therefore you lowered it down. So like this, it would be connected to the stream, so it's submerged, and it would be used the next morning when they would lift it up. So the water does not become puzzle by staying overnight. Mumbaz HaMelech was also did something. He made all the handles of the Kalim in the Beis HaMikdash from gold. I believe he came from the Chashminon. So the Gemara will explain why specifically the handles, but all the handles he made from gold. Hilni Imai, Hilni his mother, Asasan Nevreshes Shel Zohov, she made a golden menorah which was placed al Pesach Heichel, by the entrance of the Heichel. She made something else. Va'af hi Asasa Tavla Shel Zohov, she also made a golden plate, and it had the parsha of the Saita written on it. So if they have to write over the parsha of the Saita, they shouldn't have to bring a Sefer Torah and copy from a Sefer Torah. They had this tablet with the parsha of the Saita written on it, and they can copy from there. Another thing, last thing the Mishnah brings, Niktner. So Niktner, which brought the doors for the Azara, the doors right at the entrance of the Azara on Mizrach, Nasa nisim l'dal saisov. There was a miracle that happened to his doors. And because of this, all of these individuals were mentioned and they were praised for what they did for the Beis HaMikdash. So the Gemara starts with the first point that it said in the Mishnah, that when the Kohen is coming to take the two Se'idim and to make the Goyralis for them, where does he go? To the Tzafin of the Azara, and he goes specifically to the Tzafin of the Mizbeach, north of the Mizbeach. From this, that it says that he has to be north of the Mizbeach. The Mizbeach lav b'tzafin koi. So I see that the Mizbeach itself, no part of the Mizbeach is in the Tzafin section of the Azara. Because if it were to be, if any part of the Mizbeach was in the Tzafin section of the Azara, so why would the Mishnah say that he has to actually stand on the Tzafin, north of the Tzafin wall of the Azara? He could even stand by the Mizrach of the Mizbeach, and he'll be in the Tzafin section of the Azara, if there's a part of the Mizbeach that sticks into the Tzafin side. So from this that it says that he has to go to the Tzafin of the Mizbeach, I see that the Mizbeach itself is not on the Tzafin side of the Azara. Mani, whose opinion is this? Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov's opinion, the Tanya, as we learned in Abraisa, he said that it says Tzafaina l'fnei Hashem, you shech the karbanis Tzafaina in front of Hashem. So the hay, Rashi says, the hay is extra over here when it says Tzafaina. So what do I learn from this? That she hates Tzafain kuloi panui. That Tzafaina means that you have to go towards Tzafin, away from the Mizbeach, because the entire Tzafin is empty. The Mizbeach is not on Tzafin's side. Right, so this is the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. We learned about this before. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov held that the entire Mizbeach starts very close to the Dorim, to the south wall of the Azara. And therefore the Tzafin side of the Mizbeach, the Tzafin side of the Azara, the Mizbeach does not protrude into there at all. So therefore that's what our Mishnah is saying, that if you have to be on the Tzafin side of the Azara, you have to stand north of the wall of the Mizbeach. You can't be at the Mizrach side of the Mizbeach. Now the Gemara asks on this, but if so, Vaho, Reisha, Rabbi Elazar bar Shimon, the Reisha, which refers to the previous Mishnah, is the opinion of Rabbi Elazar bar Shimon. Because what did it say over there? In the previous Mishnah it said that when the Kohen comes to take his bull, to shecht it, and so on, where is he standing? Between the Ulam and the Mizbeach. He stands ma'irav of the Mizbeach, and the Shechita has to be done in Tzafin. So the Gemara there explained that he stands sort of in the ma'irav of the Mizbeach, but very close to the Tzafin side. So he should also be in the Tzafin of the Azara. So from that Mishnah, you see that the Mizbeach does stick out into the Tzafin part of the Azara. And here we're saying, according to Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, that it does not. So the Gemara answers, Kula Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakovi. The truth is, this Mishnah and the previous Mishnah, it's all Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, and the Mizbeach did not stick out into Tzafin. And we have to change what we learned in the previous Mishnah. The pshat is as follows. V'tni, you should learn over there, bi beina ulam le'ulam mizbeach. Like, or some are actually good, is kibein. In that section, that's in the area between the ulam and the mizbeach. In other words, you're not actually standing between the ulam and the mizbeach, because if the Kohen Gadol would be standing between the ulam and the mizbeach, he's not in the tzafin part of the Azara. The mizbeach does not stick out at all into the tzafin part of the Azara, according to what it says in this Mishnah. He's standing tzafin in that area between the ulam and the mizbeach, similar, like right near that place that would be between the ulam and the mizbeach. So this is the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov.
Closer to tzafin.
Yeah, but he has to be further out, closer to tzafin, right?
That's what the shchita is.
Yeah, the shchita always has to be b'tzafin. The next thing in the Mishnah it said was that when the Kohen Gadol walks, he walks together with the Zgan and the Rosh Beisav. So it said, Zgan b'minoi, the Zgan walks on his right side, the Rosh Beisav l'shmeinoi, and the head of the one that the family that did Aveda then is on the left side. So the Gemara brings a question on this. Omar Rav Yehuda said, Hamahalach liyamin rabbi, a person that walks on the right side of his teacher, harei bur, is an ignoramus. He doesn't know even basic ethics of how you should be acting with your teacher, that it's not that that you walk on the same level together with him on his right side. So now the Gemara asks, if so, the question here is, Tanan, in the Mishnah it says, Hasgan b'minoi, that the Sgan of the Kohen Gadol is walking on his right side, V'reish Beisav b'smailai, and the Reish Beisav walks on his left side. So we see that he could walk on the right and the left together with him. Vaitanya, another question is on what Rav Yehuda said, that you shouldn't walk on the right side of your teacher. It says in the Braise, Shloisha shahayu mahalchim b'derech, 3 individuals walking on the way. So how do they walk? Harav be'emtza, the teacher is in the middle. Gadol bi'yaminoi, the greater student that is on the right side. V'katan, and the katan, the lesser, the lower level, he goes on the left side. So we see that they do walk together, side by side, and it goes on the right side. And the Braise brings a source for this. This is what we find happened by the 3 malachim that came to Avram Avinu. Michal, which is the greatest of these malachim, was B'emtza, he was in the middle. And then Gavriel Biminoi, Gavriel was on the right side. And Rafal was Bismaila, Rafal, which was on a lower level, he's on the left side. So that's how they approached Avram Avinu. So the same thing, that's how a person walks with his teacher, on the right side. So how could we say, how could Rav Yehuda say, that you're not allowed to walk on the right side of a teacher? So he explained as follows, that when it says over here in the Mishnah and in the Braise that they walked on the right side, it doesn't literally mean on the right. He walks behind him on the right. Yiskasa by, like he covers him. Not at the same level as him, but like it flanks him in the back of him. That's the taich over here of Biminoi. But the Gemara asks on this, Vatanya, in Abraisa we learned, Hamahalach keneged Rabbi, Harei Zebur. If you walk with your teacher on the same level as him, right next to him, so then, as we said before, you're a bor. Okay, but now the question is, Abraisa says, Achayre Rabbi. If you walk behind your teacher, so then you're a balgaiva, you're walking right behind your teacher. There's also an issue that you're a balgaiva. So how can we say over here that it means that they walked on behind him? So the Rashi, the Gemara says mitzadid atzdudi, that they walked and the corner. And Rashi explains what this means is they couldn't walk behind him, exactly behind him, because then you're a guy balgaiva. You can't walk beside him on the same level because then you're a bor. So they walk sort of in the corner, a little bit further back, but not behind him. And then that's okay. That's the not a balgaiva. That's the right, appropriate way to walk with a teacher. And that's what the pshat in the Mishnah over here was, and the pshat in the Braise where it said that you walk on the right side of your teacher. Mitzadid that's studi, sort of at the corner, a little bit further back, not all the way behind him. Next thing it said in the Mishnah was V'kalpi Yaisa Shama Bashne Geirolis. There was a box and it had the 2 Geirolis inside of it. What were these 2 Geirolis? Tana Rabbanon, son of Braise, we learned as follows. It says in the pasuk, V'nosan Aaron al Shnei Asirim Geirolis. Aaron Akayin places on both of the goats the Geirolis. So the Braise first explains these Geirolis shall kol davar. The Geirolis could be made of any material. You have to write on the Hashem's name, the Hashem and La'azazel, but on what is it written? It can be made from anything. Doesn't make a difference. But now, the main thing that this Braise is going to come to address is, why does it say that you place on both Se'irim Goyra Lois? Why does it use a plural term? You have the 2, one that says La'Shem and one that says La'azazel. Don't you take out one and put it on one goat and one and put it on the other? So why does it say a plural term that you put both on both goats? That's what it sounds like. So Yachol, I would think, Yitin Shnai Mozeh V'Shnai Mozeh, that you have the 2 Geirolis, and you place both of them on, you have to, in other words, really, you would think you have to have 4 of them. You place 2 on each one of them. Talmud Loimar, therefore the pasuk afterwards says, Geira lechad Lashem, v'geira lechad La'azazel. You have only 2. One is written Lashem, and one is written La'azazel. Ein kan Lashem ela geira lechad. So there's only one that's going to have Hashem's name on it. Ve'en kan La'azazel lechad. There's only one that has the name Azazel on it. But still the Braise says, how do we explain Geira Lois? But it still says that you place, we know that you don't have 4 here, only 2. But why does it say the plural term? So Yachol Yitin Shal Shem Vishal Azazel Al Shal Zeh Vishem Vishal Shem Vishal Azazel Al Zeh. But still you would think that the way this Geirel is done is, it's really not a Geirel. You take both out and you place them both on one goat and then you place them both on the other goat, and essentially the Kayin himself will then decide which one of y'all wants to use Lashem and which one of y'all wants to use Lazazel. That's what Rashi says. So it's sort of a Geirel that's being done, but you're not even really using the Geirel itself. That's what you would think. It says Geirel Lois. You put both of them on both of the animals. Talmud Loimar, so no, the pasuk says Geirel Echad Lashem. So what does this mean? Ein kan Lashem ela Echad ve'en kan Lazazel ela Echad. From the fact that it says Geirel Echad, we learn out not only that there's only one piece of paper, or only one geidel that says Hashem's name, and one that says Lazazel, but also only one of them is placed on one goat, and one of them is placed on another goat. The way every geidel is done. And the geidel will decide which goat goes LaHashem and which one goes LaZazel. So then why does it use the plural term of geidalos? The answer is sheyu shavin, that the two geidalos have to be made from the same material. Geidalos, that both of them should be the same. Don't make one gold and one silver. Echad gadol, echad cotton, one small, one large. Has to be the same thing. That's what we learn from here. That's the whole point of a geidel. This inyan, the Rebbe brings us in a mimer that the inyan of the geidel and Yom Kippur shows on the whole mila of the day of Yom Kippur. Just like a geidel, a person puts aside his own thinking, he's mevatel his own seichel, and he relies on what the geidel is going to tell him. So over here also with the LaHashem and LaZazel, it's relying on the geidel. And this is also the connection that it says when you get to the name of the day, Purim, Kippurim. Yom Kippurim is that it's like Purim. And what's the meaning of the word Purim? A geidel, the geidel that Haman made. Yom Kippurim, besides the simple translation that it means a day of atonement, it also means a day that's like the day of a geidel. Because the main thing in the Beis HaMikdash was this geidel, and there should be shneim shavin. If it's not shavin, then the person's seichel gets involved. The gold one belongs here, the silver one belongs there. So that's why it's made in a way that it should be exactly equal, where the person himself has no choice in this. It's just a geidel that's deciding it. Now the Gemara comes back to what it said in the beginning of the Braise. Geidalos shall kol dava. Geidalos, you can make it of any material. So the Gemara asks, Pshita? Yeah, that's obvious. I mean, why would I think that there's any, where's there any source that you need to have a specific material? So the Gemara says, Lo yitzriche. So the only reason it's needed for the Braise to say this is l'kedetanya, because of what it says in the following Braise. Since regarding the tzitz, which Hashem's name is written on it, and v'hu shel zohav, and the tzitz is made of gold, yachalav zekein. I would think also regarding the piece of the geidel that's used with Hashem's name on it, it should also be made from gold. Talmud loima geidel riba. It says the word geidel twice in the pasuk. And what is it telling me? Riba shel zayis, you can make it of a wood from an olive tree. Riba shel ega is a wood from a walnut tree. And riba shel eshkeraya, or it could be made from eshkeraya, which is boxwood. Next thing it said in the Mishnah was, Ben cotton asa shneim asa dad lekir v'chulo. He made the 12 faucets coming out of the kir for the kohanim to wash their hands. Why 12? Tana, son of Raisa, we learned, Kedei sheyiyu shneim asa echa v'kohanim, the 12 kainim that come, ha'asukim betamid, that do the carbon tamid. So there were 12 kainim. If you remember what we learned before when we were talking about the geidalos that they made in the morning, the pious, there were 12 kainim besides the kain that shechts the carbon. The kain that shechts the carbon, it doesn't have to be done by a kain, it could be done even by Yisrael. But besides the shchita, there were 12 kainim that had to do the aveda. They could all come and wash their hands at the same time. Tana, in Abraisa, we learned another detail about this, that the faucets weren't all made on the same level. Some of them were higher up, and some of them were lower down. So shachris, in the morning, bimbi luai, when the kir is still full of water, mekadesh yadav raglav min ha'elyon. So they would wash their hands and feet from the higher spout, it's higher up, it's still full, the water's there. Arvis, in the evening, biridasai, when they went out of the Beis HaMikdash, they also washed their hands and feet. Mekadesh yadav raglav min ha'tachtein. They would wash their hands and feet from the lower ones, from the lower spout, because the water wasn't so full anymore. The next thing it said in the Mishnah was, Vafu asa muchni lekir. My muchni. What is this muchni? Amar Abaye gilgila. It's a wheel. They have a meshakale, and they would lower it down, and they would submerge it in the stream of water under the Beis HaMikdash, so it shouldn't become puzzle overnight. Munvez HaMelech asa kol yedais HaKelim. He made all the handles of the kelim of the Beis HaMikdash to be gold. So the question of the Gemara is, Navdinu lididudizov. Why is he only making the handles gold? Why doesn't he make the entire keli gold? Amar Abaye, so Abaye explains, it's speaking about the handles of the knives. You can't make the knife itself of gold. It's not going to be strong enough to be able to cut. But the handles were made from gold. Meisvei, the Gemara asks on this pshat, but it says in the Braise, Afhu asa kane kelim, he made the bases of where the kelim were put on, v'oigne kelim, and the oigne kelim means like a place where you grip the kelim. He also made that of gold, and v'yudais kelim, and the handles of the kelim. And then it says separately, v'yudais hakinim, and the handles of the knives, shoyim akipurim of Yom Kippur shlo zahav, he made them of gold. So the Braisa clearly says separately, there's the handles of the kelim, and the handles of the knives. So you can't say like Abaye's pshat that it's referring to the handles of the knives only. Tergema Abaye, so Abaye explains, Bekatase, denargi, v'chatzini, that it's talking about the handles of katase, which are the axes or hatchets, or chatzini, which are the sickles. So these are also tools that if you're going to make it of gold itself, it's not going to be able to do the job. So just similar to the knife. So therefore you could only make the handles out of gold and not the tool itself out of gold. The Mefarshim here actually say, the whole question of the Gemara was that why did he only make the handles out of gold and not the kalim itself? But you see here in the Braisa another thing, that it says that he made the base of the kalim of gold and he made the grip of the kalim of gold. Why does it say he only made the base of the kalim? Why didn't he make the keli itself out of gold? Elamai, the answer is, the Rishonim say that when it said he made the base of the kalim of gold, we're talking about certain kalim that were already gold. The kalim were gold, but the base was not gold. And he made even the base should also be of gold. Right? So that's the pshat in that part of the Braisa. When it came to the handles, so over here, if the handles weren't gold, so certainly the kalim were not gold either. And it says he only made the handles of gold. And that's why the Gemara is discussing why only the handles. The what? Yeah, the knives that were used. I guess there were knives designated for the shechita, just for Yom Kippur. Yeah. Hilni imai, Hilni, the mother of Munvez, asason the vreshes shel zahav. So she made an vreshes, which is a menorah of gold that was placed by the entrance of the heichal. Tane, so in a Braisa we learned about this. That b'shah sha'achama zeirachas, when the sun would come and shine every morning, so it would shine at this menorah, nitzaitzis yaitzin mimena. So there was sparks, sort of. It was sparkling. It from the light of the sun that it reflected on it came out of it. Va'koil yaidin, and then everyone would know shegi man kriya shema. It came the time to say kriya shema in the morning. That was netzachama. They knew that this is the time to say kriya shema. So Meisvei, the question was asked on this: is that the time when they knew to read kriya shema? But it says as follows: Hakoyres shema shachris and anshe mishmar. Someone that says Shema in the morning, the same time that the people, the Mishmar, which were Yidden that were there, designated to stand by the carbon, as shluchim of all of Klal Yisrael. There was a Maimed, there were Yidden that had to stand there by the carbon. It says in the Pasuk, Tishmuru lahakrivli, that Yidden had to stand there when the carbon Talmud was brought. So if you say Kriya Shema together with the Anshe Mishmar, sorry I confused this. Anshe Mishmar refers to the Kayanim. The Kayanim that were part of the Mishmar, they were the group of Kayanim serving that day. The Anshe Maimid are the Yidden that come and stand by the Karbanis. So someone that says Shema with either one of them, Lo Yotza. He's not Yetza Kriya Shema. Why not? Mipnei she'anshe Mishmar mashkimin. The people, the Kayanim that do the Avodah in the Beis HaMikdash, they say Kriya Shema earlier on because they have to start their Avodah right at Netzachama. And they're going to do their Avodah for a longer period of time, so they're not going to necessarily have time to say Kriya Shema. When do they say Kriya Shema? After Aleisa Shachar. Rashi actually says that they said Kriya Shema before the time. Before the time of the mitzvah. So therefore you can't say it together with them. And Anshe Maimid Ma'acharin. And the Anshe Maimid, which were the ones that came, Tishmuru lahakrivli, they had to stand there by the carbon, so they had to stand there and they said Kriya Shema later. Amar Abaye, so Abaye explains, you're right, when it says here that people knew when they saw the sparkling sun at these menorahs that were placed there, it's not referring to the Kayanim or to the Yidden that were standing there. L'shar Ama di Yerushalayim. It's referring to other Yidden that were there in Yerushalayim that saw this, that they knew when to say Kriya Shema. When they saw the sparkle of the sun at these menorahs, they knew that it's Netzachama. So there's two interesting things about this Gemara. First of all, as I mentioned, from Rashi it's mashma that the Anshe Mishmar said Kriya Shema before the right time. They didn't even fulfill the mitzvah properly. But other Rishonim say that it can't be that they were not yetzer the mitzvah of Kriya Shema when they had to do the Avodah. So they probably said Kriya Shema before Netzachama, but it's still the time that you could say Kriya Shema. B'chlal, Kriya Shema, b'pashtus, you can say before Netzachama. Right, so therefore they said Kriya Shema at the right time. They didn't say it right by Netzachama. The Gemara is asking that how can we say that they knew then to say Kriya Shema when they had already said it before? And the Anshe Maimid said it later. But even then they said it before or later, they were yetzer the mitzvah of Kriya Shema. That's what the Rishonim say. But in Rashi it's mashma actually that they were not yetzer the mitzvah of Kriya Shema. There's a very long Tosfos here, as you see. The main point that Tosfos discusses is, don't we know that Kriya Shema is said before Netzachama? Isn't there the famous Gemara that says regarding davening with nets? How do you daven with nets? You say the Shemona Esrei by Netzachama. and you say Kriya Shema before then, because you're supposed to say the bracha of Gal Yisrael, the Mimasmach Gul Tefillah, right by Netz. So you're saying Kriya Shema even before Netz. So why is it saying in our Gemara that you say Kriya Shema at the time of Netz? So there's a few different things in Taisvis. Taisvis brings a few opinions here about this. And one, it's 2 points. One point Taisvis says is that the people in Yerushalayim, they didn't know exactly when before Netz is. Yeah, the right time to say Kriya Shema is before Netz. And then you start Shemay Nesra by the Netz. But they didn't know the exact time. So they were relying on seeing the sparkle of the sun to know when to say Kriya Shema for Netz. But another pshat Tosfos brings in the end, from Rabbeinu Chananel, he actually says that those that daven vasikin, the lashon of the Gemara in Berachos is, vasikin goimrin oisa manetzachama. What does goimrin oisa mean? So according to most Rishonim, it means that you start Shemay Nesra, right by the time of Netzachama. But according to Rabbeinu Chananel, it actually refers to saying Kriya Shema. That when you say Kriya Shema, that should be right by Netzachama. And his raya is from our Gemara right over here, that they would say Kriya Shema when they saw the sparkle of the sun of Netzachama. Let's go weiter in the Gemara. V'afi. Yeah, the people in Yerushalayim. Yeah, they were able to see, I guess, the ones that were close enough.
Next to the Heichel.
So I guess they were in the Harabayas. They were close enough. They were able to see, right? But the other people that were not far. V'afi yasasa tabla. Then it said that this Hilni Amalka, she also made like a tablet that had the parsha of Seita written on it, in order that you shouldn't have to take out the Sefer Torah. Shamit mina. From here you see. Kaisvin Megillah Latinik, you're allowed to write a Megillah to teach a child Torah. L'slamidba, to learn with him. You can take certain psukim of the Torah and write it on a tablet to teach a child. So Rashi here says that in the Gemara in Gittin, there's a machlokes about this, whether you can write a part of a Sefer Torah on a separate tablet to teach a child. So and here it says, no, you can write, she wrote the parsha of Seita on a tablet. Resh Lakish said in the name of Rabbi Yanai, no, it's not a raya from here. Why? Ba'alef base. She didn't write over the entire parsha of Seita that has to be erased and written, but she just wrote it ba'alef base, which means Rosh Tevis. She wrote only the Rosh Tevis of the psukim, letters, but not the full words. The Gemara brings up Braise, Meisve, and Braise it says, Kesheku Kaisev, when the Kayin would write the parsha of the Seita to be erased, Raya v'kaisev mashakasev. He has to look and see the psukim, and then he writes it over. Again, Raya v'kaisev mashakasev b'tavla. He would look at this tavla, at this tablet, to see what to write. So doesn't it mean Raya? He sees the psukim there and he writes it over. So the Gemara says no. Eime Raya v'kaisev k'mashakasev b'tavla. Like, similar to what it says, according to the letters that he sees there, but he doesn't write exactly what's written on the tablet. But now the Gemara brings another brayso where it clearly says that it did say psukim there. Meisvei kishu kaisev, when he writes over the parsha of Seita, roye v'kaisev masha kasev b'tavla, he looks at the tablet and he writes over from there. Uma kasev b'tavla, what does it say in the tablet? Im shachav v'shaisach, im loy shachav, so on, im satis, im loy satis, those psukim that are written in the tablet. So we see that you can write over the parts of the psukim of the Torah in this tablet. So the Gemara answers, Hasam, Beseit again. What the Braisa means to say is, Beseit again. What this means is, as Rashi says, he did, in the tablet that was written, the beginning of the Pasik, like Imloi Shachav, it said those words written out fully, but then the rest of the Pasik, until the end, it was written with Rosh Tevis. And the same thing, the next Pasik, Va'at Kisotis, that was written, and then the rest was written with Rosh Tevis. And then the next pasuk as well, Yiten Hashem Oisach was written, and then the rest was Rosh Tevis. So therefore you're allowed to write it in this way because you're not writing full psukim. Nikner, now the story of Nikner, what does it say? Nasu Nisim Lidal Saisov. There were miracles that occurred to his doors. What happened? Tana Rabban and Son of Braisa, we learned what the miracle was. Ma Nisim Nasu Lidal Saisov, what was the nest that happened to his doors? Amru, they said, Keshaholach Nikner Lahavi Dal Sisme Alexandria. Nikner went all the way to Alexandria in Egypt to bring up beautiful copper doors for the Beis HaMikdash, for the Azara, Shal Mitzrayim. So Bachazirasa, on his way back, Amad Olav Nachshel Shebiyam, so there was a big wave in the ocean that came, Litove, he was going to drown his boat. Notlu Achas Mehen, so they took one of those doors, Vetilu Leyam, they threw it into the Yam, so they shouldn't drown. And the water still didn't calm down from its rage. Bikshula Atlas Chaverta. They wanted to throw down the second door. Amadu v'karcha. So he, the Nikner, went and he embraced. He was like holding this door, and he said, Amalem. He said to to those on the boat, Hatiluni ima, if you're going to throw it into the water, throw me together. Miyad nochayom izapa. As soon as he had this kind of mesiras nefesh to hold on to the doors, or this door, so then the water stopped, the rage of the water stopped. He had tremendous pain of what happened to the other door. Yes, now it's incomplete, one without the other. You needed two doors. So he had a lot of pain about this. Even some of Farshim actually say that his main pain was when he threw the first door, he didn't think he could save it. No, the Eibusha took it away, so he wasn't upset. But then when he saw that he had Mesiras Nefesh to hold on to the second door, and the Eibusha stopped the rage of the water, so now he had pain. Why didn't I have Mesiras Nefesh for the first door? I should have held on to it. But then, Kivin Sheigil in the Mala Shal Akai, when he came to the shores by Akai, to the port, so this door was poking out from under the boat, and he saw that really it was floating along together with the boat the entire way. Others say what happened was different. There was a creature in the water, a large creature in the water, that had swallowed this door, and it spewed it out all the way to the dry land there. And that's where they found it. And regarding this, Shlomo HaMelech says, the walls of the house of the Beis HaMikdash are arazim, cedar wood, and rehiteinu berusim. Rehiteinu, Rashi says, refers to the doors are berusim. What does berusim mean? Berusim literally means a kind of wood, but the Gemara here says, Al tikri berusim, don't read it berusim, el bris yam. It means bris yam. What is bris yam? Rashi says two interpretations. One pshat is, bris means that these two doors had this covenant with one another, that even when one was thrown out, it stuck to the boat together with the other door. Another pshat Rashi says, you read it brias yam. The other pshat that we said before, that there was a creature in the water that swallowed it and then spewed it out. And therefore, these special copper doors that he brought were left there always. All of the gates, the doors that were put in the Beis HaMikdash, nishtanu liyos shel zahav. So eventually, when the Yidden got richer, they changed them and they made them to be gold. Chutz mishare nikner, besides these gates of nikner, they never changed it. It was copper and they left it. Mipnei shenasa by nisim, because of these tremendous miracles that happened with it. And others actually say that they didn't change it to gold because the gold, the copper of these doors was shiny. It was very good quality copper. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, it was a nechoshes that's very refined, a very good refined copper, unusual kind of a copper, and it was shining just as much as gold. Therefore, they never changed it.
And the Jews of Tunisia